What's going on YouTube, Wild Lion Games here, and I have a review of Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. It is the third installment of the Test Drive Unlimited series, with 1 and 2 being released back in 2006 and 2011. Test Drive Solar Crown was announced 4 years ago, and the game has finally come out after much hype from a loyal audience, including myself. Test Drive Unlimited is boasting on their website and Steam page that they are reinventing the open world racing genre, which is a bold statement considering both titles prior to this one were fairly innovative at the time, and now we also live in a world with more open world options such as Forza Horizon and The Crew, which both bring their own unique flavor, like multiple weather seasons and boats and planes. So what else can be done to change the game? Let's find out. I think the best way to go about this review is to first do a quick examination of Test Drive Unlimited 1 and 2. You need to know what its predecessors did before this long-awaited trilogy. Developed by Eden Games and published by Atari back in 2006, Test Drive Unlimited 1 was quite the game changer that separated itself from other open-world racers, which I actually believe at the time was just a few Need for Speed games, but it was the monstrous size of the map, its kind of relaxing and chill nature, and the ability to live the life as a luxury street racer. It was basically a life simulator focused around street racing, where you could drive to clothing stores to buy clothes, you could go to car dealerships and browse their different offerings, and you could even buy real estate. And I loved all this as a kid, like how you could purchase property on the island and show off your status as an accomplished street racer, and the properties also served a purpose of housing your vehicles in the garages. So if you didn't have the garage space, well, you couldn't own the car. So you would either have to sell one of your cars to make space for a new one, or if you had the cash, buy another house. And the houses range from cheap skyrise apartments with 2-car garages to multi-million-dollar mansions on the beach with 10-car garages. And you could own multiple properties, and you could store different cars in different garages so you could access them in different parts of the map. And the real estate offices even offer different houses for sale. Then when you jump to Test Drive Unlimited 2, they take all this a step further with customizable houses where you can change the wall color, the decorations, and you can even hang up photos of your cars that you took on the wall. You could walk around the properties, which was a major change, and one of the houses was a giant yacht. There was also a casino in the game, which was like the social hub to meet other drivers, and you could gamble in casino games like roulette and poker. The games also had fun driving events that weren't involved with racing, such as delivering suspicious packages.
Can I count on you? I have this little package that needs to be delivered to a friend of mine. You understand? No funny business with the cops.
Or giving rides to strangers.
Hey, thanks for stopping. I'm totally exhausted. Could you give me a lift?
Or even delivering high-end vehicles for large sums of money. Then there is also just a good variety of race length. You know, the typical race in these games, they're like 3 to 5 miles. You can get them done in under 5 minutes, but Test Drive Unlimited also had a good amount of intermediate length races that were in that like 8 to 20 mile range. And then you even had the infamous lap around the island race, which took over an hour to complete. You know, when you're delivering a high-end car, you can take as long as you want, but even a minor mistake like dirtying up the rims will lower your payout, while a perfect delivery is going to give you a nice bonus. If you're driving a stranger to a location, you're on a time limit, and poor driving can not only lower your payout, but excessive bad driving will actually cause them to get out of the car, and you lose the mission.
Okay, just pull over here. I'd rather walk.
The game was overall set in a more grounded reality compared to Need for Speed, which, stylistically, they were totally different games and offer totally different experiences. So here we are, 13 and a half years later with the third installment. What's good about Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown? Gameplay and just the overall driving physics. Solar Crown provides responsive and fun SimK driving experience, and I think it's much smoother and more realistic than The Crew 2 and The Crew Motorfest, but it's not a simulation of, say, Gran Turismo or Forza Motorsport. But for an arcade racer, the cars feel great, all-wheel drive grips the road, and rear-wheel drive, like the Alpine, will struggle to maintain high speeds around turns without the back wheels spinning out, which ended up making my next purchase decision to be an Audi so I could get that all-wheel drive. The Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest, to me, are more adventure, thrill-seeking driving games where all the vehicles handle relatively similar, and it's more about like flying around the map, taking corners at ridiculous speeds that aren't possible, and big jumps. Need for Speed has the police system, and they also have like the hand-drawn animations popping up all over the screen, and they have a bunch of, it's more about like the street racing aspect, and it's also very arcadey. Solar Crown, while still arcade, it definitely requires more technical skills while driving around the map than those other open world games. It's a game grounded more into reality than its competitors. I personally enjoy this simpler aesthetic compared to a lot of modern racing games that are just constantly throwing a ton of information at you all at once with a laundry list of to-do items. And Motorfest to me is just like this oversaturated world with UI elements popping up all over the place, and Horizon is constantly bombarding your screen with information and skill points and icons and messages. And Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown is more of like this chill open world racer where you find a connection with the roads and the hidden paths, and it's about discovering all the nooks and crannies of Hong Kong Island. It's sleek, the visual experience is just more about the car and the world around you. The ability to tune your car is also a lot of fun, and I do recommend doing it and even throwing on different tires if you're doing an off-road race. I mean, you look at here at this gameplay where I'm in the Porsche, and I'm kind of sliding around. I'm really struggling in this race in 7th place, but the moment I change my drive mode, I change it to a sport drive mode, I throw in some off-road tires, and now I'm up here in 2nd place. I mean, it's night and day how much easier driving becomes. So if you are struggling, make sure to take the time to change your car's its tuning performance. You can get as basic as you want and pretty simple, or if you're a true gearhead, you can get down to the fine details and make all sorts of adjustments if you know what you're doing in there. But the absolute best part of driving in Solar Crown are the roads and the world around you. I mean, the scale of the streets in the city are compressed down to a more realistic and lifelike scale compared to other open world racers, and it's very refreshing, I think, because oftentimes you have these really wide lanes throughout the map, even when you're supposed to be in these tight, city streets. And because of the road design, perfecting that corner is just that much more rewarding. The highways are great for high-speed runs. The mountains offer a lot of fun switchbacks to whip around some turns in all-wheel drive vehicles. But I just can't get over with how nice driving in the city feels, especially when you're used to having these like luxurious lanes to cruise around in, like when Kramer repainted the highway in Seinfeld. Driving around in Hong Kong Island is a thrilling experience, and it's kind of hard to tell from watching the video, but when you do pick up a controller and play, you're gonna notice the difference immediately. The progression system is also a refreshing take that I haven't seen since the early days of racing games, where you had to grind your progression and really earn those supercars. That was, one of the most rewarding achievements you could experience. Even in Forza Motorsport 4, I remember it being a grind through career mode just to get to those higher end vehicles on closed tracks, and it's something I appreciate about Solar Crown. The Forza games and the Crew and Need for Speed, they reward you immediately with powerful cars to start the game, and you can actually acquire more of them with just in a few hours of playing. So if you're looking for a racing game where you have to kind of work from the bottom up and earn those cars, and you want a progression system that gradually allows you to improve at a good pace, Solar Crown might be something that you're looking for. The bad. Performance and graphics. You've probably been reading about this, seen about this everywhere, and to me, when your game is all about the feeling of Hong Kong Island and the spectacle of street racing, the game needs to look the part. Solar Crown runs horribly on both consoles and PC, and it doesn't look great either. I mean, when you compare the car reflections and environment to even just the Crew 2 from 6 years ago, Solar Crown looks like a PlayStation 4 game. I'm playing on PC. These are my PC settings, which I know they're not top of the line, but I think they're still very solid for 2024. And I was also one of the few people that didn't have many issues with Cyberpunk back when it first launched. But I can barely run Test Drive Solar Crown. Like, my initial hour was awful. I almost refunded the game because the car was just constantly lurching up and down the street, frame rate drops were causing me to lose where I am, and my PC, or the game was telling me I'm like using the maximum CPU and GPU, but my PC on another screen's telling me like, hey, we're running fine. We're using like a third of the available RAM over here. With all the optimization issues the game had earlier in the year with their closed beta, I'm genuinely surprised that this hasn't been addressed by the team, especially on the console end. I'm not usually one to harp on graphics, and the Test Drive series was never known to be a graphical feat, but I do expect the game that, performs well, and definitely performs far better than what is being delivered right now with smoother frame rates and a cleaner car design with better lighting and better shadows. Collision physics. The collision physics are pretty tame in Test Drive, which surprised me because I enjoyed Test Drive Unlimited 1's collisions, which were extremely unrealistic, but it's an arcade game, and plowing your car into NPC traffic and watching their bumpers fly off was just hilarious for some reason. But none of the open world racing games today have satisfying collisions, but it's just something I still wanted to make note of with this game because the lack of vehicle damage to yourself or other cars is just disappointing. And within the bad here, we're gonna go back to the gameplay because one of the negative things is also the AI that you race in the game. You can't choose the difficulty. The game changes the difficulty for you, and sometimes you're maxed out of your car's performance at that class level that you're allowed to be for the race, but there's just nothing you can do to catch the driver up front. I mean, it's straight up sometimes you're racing a bunch of morons who are just driving off the side of the road, or you've got 8 Max Verstappens that you're racing against, and it's impossible to beat them all. It's almost like the game has skill-based matchmaking, but for single-player races where there's no one in there, because I look and all the drivers are expert drivers, and I can't win, I lose, I'm in 8th place. And then the next race, they're all down to experienced drivers. And so it's kind of weird that they're using this AI skill-based matchmaking when I'm the only person in the race. I should be able to set my difficulty, but again, that's probably an issue with the game being an always online game. You can't play this game offline. There's no offline, truly single-player component, which is probably why the AI behaves the way it does. Another bad is the lack of cars in this game. I mean, it's not just that the car roster is so small, it's just the lack of variety of vehicles and the lack of just newer vehicles that are in the game. The first offense that comes to mind is there not being any Subarus in a racing game. I mean, we're talking about the WRX here, a great all-wheel drive sport vehicle that would be perfect for whipping around these streets at Hong Kong Island, and it's not here. And then you want to talk about off-road. You want to know how to get fans to your game? Throw in a damn Subaru Baja in your video game. You know how many Subaru nuttos are going to flock into your game to play it if they can drive a Baja off-road in Hong Kong Island? Come on, guys. There's no Hummer in the game. There's no Ford Bronco in the game. Bentley's not a brand in the game. And most of these vehicles are from the 2017, 2018, or earlier time frame. I don't see any 2020 or newer vehicles in the game. And I take that back. I believe that one of the BMWs they have in the game is a 21. But other than that, everything's 2017, 2018, 2011, or much earlier, in the vintage range. The lack of innovation. Like I said, on their Steam page and website, they're claiming that they're reinventing the open world racing genre, but I don't see anything new here. You have 2 clans to join. You have the Streets and the Sharps, and when you join a clan, you get access to their clubhouses, but the only thing they're really good for is for, challenging members in the clubhouse in a very, uninspiring and unoriginal storylines that level up your status in the club. The clubs don't offer anything either. I stood here and watched the sunset, which was cool, but you can't get in the pool. I can't order anything at the bar. It's the equivalent of window shopping. I haven't seen the perks of leveling up my clan rank just yet either. You can race various club members when you reach the proper level, and beating them earns you higher status. It's a fine system, but again, I wouldn't call this reinventing the open world racing genre. So what if instead of having, petty rivalries within your own club and racing these guys to prove you're better than them, what if you had to race the NPC mini bosses from the opposite clan to improve the respect of your peers from your own clan. So instead of me racing my own clan member who's at, when I'm at level 20, and when I win, what if I go race a guy, the level 20 boss from the other clan, and then my own clan respects me more and I move up the ranks inside my club that way. And speaking of lack of innovation, we don't have a variety of racing modes like we did in Test Drive Unlimited 1 and 2, and even the Crew. The Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest have driving events that aren't tied to racing, like slalom courses and escape events where you're outrunning this ever-growing shockwave. I don't think we need giant jumps and shockwaves in Test Drive Unlimited because that would feel out of place in this world, but it's just an example of how vanilla the racing events are in Solar Crown. Which, again, brings me back to the Sharps versus Streets. So, you remember we had the variety of driving events that I mentioned in Test Drive 1 and 2 where you could deliver packages and deliver cars. So, what if you brought that in with the clans? So, for example, you join the Streets and you now unlock the package delivery events where you have to deliver suspicious packages. And maybe they're stolen items that you have to deliver and they can result in police chases and things like that. And if you join the Sharps, maybe those special delivery events are like, luxury goods like imported cigars or gold bars. I'm just throwing out ideas here and an example of just how there really isn't that much depth tied to the clans, which isn't a TDU Solar Crown only problem, but it's just something that's always been missing in open world racers with clan systems. Although I do bite my tongue because if I remember correctly, Need for Speed Carbon actually did a pretty cool system where you take over different parts of the city and you could have teammates that would help you out in rival races if I remember that game correctly, but you guys get what I'm saying here. And so while the clan system works, I still put this in the bad because like I said, the game claims to be reinventing the wheel, but it still looks like the same wheel we've all seen before. The ugly. It's not a Test Drive Unlimited game. Look, I'm 15 hours in the Solar Crown, which is nowhere near the end game, but the variety of races that I saw in half that time in Test Drive Unlimited 1 and 2 are just not here. Every race is about the same length, they can be completed in under 5 minutes, and the races are a ton of fun, the track variation is fresh, and there's this cool domination race mode where you earn points depending on where you're at in the leaderboard by crossing the different checkpoints. But other than that, it's just the standard circuit and sprint affair with races lasting no longer than 5 minutes, maybe 10. The ability to purchase houses and store cars in a garage are also gone. There's no clothing stores dotted around the map, and instead you just live in a fancy apartment at the Solar Hotel, and when you reach different ranks, you'll be able to move up into a larger and nicer apartment with the top floor penthouses being reserved for the most esteemed racers. Which is fine, I suppose, but the variety of properties from the previous games that were dotted all around the map made for a more unique experience, whereas everyone in Solar Crown is just in a single location in the exact same apartment hotel room layout. When you were in Test Drive Unlimited 1 online and you saw someone with their mega mansion and fancy cars in the garage, you knew they really had to work hard in order to afford that. And when you achieved that status, you just felt like a boss on that island, like the king of street racing. And this is where Test Drive Solar Crown, in my opinion, fails the most. They didn't fully utilize their own personality that made them who they were, and they left fans with a half-baked attempt at recreating its former magic. Test Drive Unlimited was a racing lifestyle simulator, not an open world racing game. You purchased houses, you had ownership over the island, and actively participated in its environment. That's what set itself apart from the other games. And so when we jump ahead to Test Drive Solar Crown and we don't really have those features, to me, I ask myself, what is it doing to set itself apart? Forza Horizon 4 had the various weather systems. Horizon 5 has just a massive map with different landscapes from tropical jungles to desert. And the Crew, they have the boats and they have the planes, and their map was the entire United States. So what is Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown doing that's innovative here? Unfinished content. The other ugly. Solar Crown is just a giant walking red flag in the gaming industry that people are choosing to ignore. Poorly optimized and releasing a post-launch roadmap of features to come before the game even comes out, which to me screams, I'm not finished, but still use your hard-earned cash to buy me. At one point, early access and post-launch content was a great way for indie developers to get their game out in front of audiences in hopes of boosting awareness, raising funds and support so they could continue making the game on their smaller budgets. And recently, major studios, I think, have been taking advantage of this process, and they're tricking us into buying these full-price games that are halfway complete so that they can have updates for the next 2 years to come. What happened to being a finished game at launch? So, as you guys know, I rate my games on an obscure scale that doesn't follow any sort of number guideline, and I use strange comparisons. So, how do I rate Test Drive Solar Crown? I give it the Dallas Cowboys. Lots of preseason hype about how great they will be, and they're going to be just as good as they were back in the day, but they fail to meet the expectations of their former Super Bowl greatness, and only the die-hard fans are going to support, while everyone else moves on to teams that are actually Super Bowl contenders. Look, the Cowboys are a really good team. They have a lot of talent, but they just don't have that it factor to take them to the next level. Plus, there are newer powerhouses that just do a better all-around job at being complete performing games. Look, if you're a fan of the Test Drive Unlimited series, I think you're going to be a little bit disappointed. It's a really good racing game at its core, if you can get it to run, but it's not a good Test Drive Unlimited game, if that makes sense. Comparing it to The Crew would be like apples to oranges in my opinion, because like I said above, The Crew is like a thrill-seeking adventure driving game. And I think Test Drive is more of like that car purist street racing game. When it comes to customization, it's kind of just like the interiors, the rims. You're not putting body kits on your car. That's why I call it a car purist street racing game, because you're not adding body modifications to the vehicle. If you are just looking for a game that's less about like the antics of The Crew, and that it has excellent driving physics that require a little bit more finesse on the controller, I do think you're going to like Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. But I can't recommend it right now because of its performance issues. But if all of this does sound like a game you would enjoy, I would keep an eye on it, because hopefully pretty soon they'll improve the PC and console performance, and then I think that's a good time to pick this game up. That's it for me, guys. Hope you enjoyed the review. I appreciate you watching. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing for more content like this as we break down various games. And until next time, peace.